as always, by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot, presented by our good friends over at Little Caesars Pizza. We're Stay Hot. They're staying ready with some hot and ready pizza for you all NFL season long. Kind of a decent amount to talk about today. The MVP race, of course, Jalen Hurts is still the front runner. Does he deserve it? We'll be talking about that today. Frank Reich got fired. Got to, of course, talk about that. The rare Panthers discussion on this podcast. Then there's a lot of big games to discuss this week with a lot of playoff implications and seeding implications. So we'll talk about those. And there's a little bit of NBA we'll discuss too. But before we get into all of that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this glorious Wednesday? Everyone will be listening to it on Thursday, but it's Wednesday when we're recording this.
I'm doing well. It's Spotify Wrapped today, so I've enjoyed seeing that. Blaiden, I saw you were in the top 0.0005 of Queens of the Stone Age listeners.
I was.
Which is probably the lowest number I've seen.
Well, I think it helps that, Queens of the Stone Age has a lot of listeners, but it's not like Drake.
No, it's not like Drake, but still, I was concerned to just see that number so high. And then, of course, thank you to everybody who sent in their Spotify Wrapped with us on there.
I always love seeing it. It's so cool. And I pulled the Spotify for Podcasters Wrapped. We had 3.8 thousand people that had us as their number one podcast.
3.8 thousand?
That's pretty big.
Amazing.
That's almost a bigger number than I can comprehend.
That is a bigger number than I can comprehend. I don't get it. I don't know how much that is, but it sounds like an awful lot, and I'm incredibly thankful.
It's like the only way I can rationalize it, it's like how many passing yards Dak Prescott currently has.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like, imagine the number of points LeBron has scored in his career divided by 10, and that really puts it in perspective for me.
It's like how many points LeBron had by year 2.5. Okay, now that's a lot of points.
Okay, now I get it. Now I get it.
Dak doesn't have 3.8. I don't think anybody has that many yards yet. It's like how many yards, I don't know, he had. It's like how many attempts he has. Okay. There we go. Now we're getting closer. Now it all makes sense.
Who was your number one, Theo? I know yours was.
My number one artist was the Talking Heads.
I was either going to guess them or JPEG Mafia.
JPEG Mafia was number 5.
Okay. Fair enough. Matt,
I'm not beating the white allegations with my Spotify rap.
No, I don't either, I'm afraid.
I think I'm beating the allegations with my Wrapped. Maybe a little bit. Matt, I assume your number one was Radiohead.
You would assume right.
And would I assume right that your number 2 is Lana Del Rey?
Yeah. You know how I get down, man.
Same as it ever was.
I do know how you get down. Same Spotify Wrapped every year for Matthew Sponhour here.
I don't know, man.
Was Kendrick on the list this year?
I don't think so. I think maybe he just missed.
Big J.
Oh my God.
The power rankings.
I was trying really hard towards the end to get Olivia Rodrigo into the top 5, but
why?
Because I just think she's cool, and I like to.
Are you a teenage girl?
You don't like Olivia Rodrigo's music, man?
No, man. No, I don't.
What?
It's not that. It's good if wild. I was like a middle school girl, I would go crazy for Olivia Rodrigo.
Not liking Olivia Rodrigo is, I think, a little bit wild.
I mean, she's a good pop star, but I don't. The top 40 hits are not quite my style of music. I'm never turning on Olivia Rodrigo. With all due respect,
man. Rodrigo has some hits. And
she had some misses on her last album, though. Oh my God, there were some bad ones.
She did, but she also had some hits. I will say, I think I noticed there was like a rockier appeal to her more recent songs. And then I found out that one of her biggest musical influences is Jack White and the White Stripes. So
that's plumb
all I'm
crazy.
saying.
Good for her, man. She's a big star. She's doing a lot better than me.
Next year, I either need to have Rodrigo or Billie Eilish in my top 5.
You have to.
You don't. You're a 23-year-old man.
I mean, you've got to.
I do.
You need to, man.
Either that or
I think I speak for all of us when I say I need to have Olivia Rodrigo in my top 5 or else.
Or else.
I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to force anything. I think that you just need to.
I think you need to be yourself, dude.
And
I am.
Whatever happens.
But I just don't think I listened.
No, dude, be yourself.
I think you listen to plenty of Olivia Rodrigo. I don't think you need to listen to. I gotta get her top 5. I think that you've listened to plenty.
Listen to more Olivia. I've just got to.
I think we should talk about. Sports. It's been a while since we've talked about the NBA on this show. Every Wednesday, we like to highlight someone who's doing good. We're not haters around here. Yeah. So, over the last week, any NBA stuff that has stood out to you? For me, it's Devin Booker and the Suns, who are 8-1 since his return, and his assist rate is through the roof, and he's lights out from 3. And
his growth as a playmaker is so ridiculous and so big. He's a no-brainer top 10 player in the NBA. A no-brainer top 10 player in the NBA. And he's probably, I'd have to sit down and really think about it and scratch my chin a bunch, but he's probably closer to 5 than he is to 10.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Devin Booker top 5 takes on Twitter recently.
Yeah, he's getting a real shot at MVP.
He's been crazy. He's been absolutely insane. And the Suns are in the play-in tournament, which I guess probably should be our NBA segment because the knockout rounds are upon us.
The in-season tournament.
The in-season tournament. What did I say?
The play-in tournament.
Oh my
what are your thoughts on the colorful courts?
I think that the colors should be a little bit more muted. I feel like they're a bit too in your face.
It's a good idea, though. It's a good idea. They need to tweak it, but it's a good idea. I like the thought.
I love it. I think it's so cool.
Do you have any prediction for the winner of the? I'll say
your Phoenix Suns. Actually,
you think
I think
so?
The Timberwolves are red hot right now. They could. I don't know. It's like one game, we're predicting elimination games. I'll say the Timberwolves are red hot right now. If I was going to have like a player to highlight, it'd be Rudy Gobert, he's back to his old ways. Now, granted, how that will look in the playoffs, I still have questions about. I think everybody blames the Jazz perimeter defense for what happened in Utah, and that's like definitely part of it, and it definitely won't go down like that in Minnesota once it gets to the playoffs, but I still think he's a little bit too easy to take out of the game in a 7-game series if you have a stretch 5, but his interior defense is good as ever. He's kind of gone through like a slump last year, has made his resurgence. People care more, I think. If like instead he had just been really good last year and really good this year, I think people wouldn't be as excited about it. But his interior defense is still, the best in the NBA, and guarding shots under the basket is the most important defensive thing that you can do. Arguably, like if you had one aspect of a game outside of just like perimeter creation, just like being the guy, it's maybe the single most important aspect of basketball, to be completely honest with you. And the Timberwolves have the defense around them. They've been ridiculous, They're the 1 seed now. Maybe they keep that. Maybe Denver gets it, although, they're banged up. I think there's a good shot that they do, but they'll be a top 3 seed bare minimum, you'd figure. And people are excited about them, and they should be.
Yeah, I'll go with Boston for my pick. I think
the top 2 teams we're bold here.
They're 14-4 Celtics. I think we'll win it with their death lineup.
Their death lineup is crazy good, man.
It is.
Porzingis was a ridiculous get for them.
It's going to be an early statement. So
Who's your
We all-
favorite to
we
come
all-
out?
we all know the
Do you
Kings are
still
winning.
favor the Nuggets, or do you like Boston more? Do you like the Timberwolves? Do you like the Bucks? Do you like your own Phoenix Suns? You could pick them
to come out to win the whole thing or the tournament?
to win the whole dang thing.
I think
Or the tournament.
I think the Nuggets are probably still the team I'm going to answer with. I think they just beat the Clippers with their big three out. Jokic is just kind of in an unsolvable puzzle, and I think that he's, the best player in the NBA pretty obviously right now. And I think that their core has to take a bigger hit than what it's taken this offseason for them to get knocked down from the favorites. I'd like to pick the Bucks, but they've struggled a little bit. I think my preseason take was Lillard and Giannis would be super unstoppable, but they've been come out the gates a little slow. Boston is also right in it, but I don't know if once it's Tatum and Brown in the playoffs again, I wonder if it's going to be the same thing as it's been the past couple years, and the team that's done it before gets it done again. I'd probably say the Nuggets. Suns, I've yet to see the big three all healthy, and the depth and the KD being old and Booker being old scares me for winning the entire thing. And I can see Minnesota. They're pretty well rounded. They've got, a nuclear offensive force and the best defender in the league. So but I'll still go with the Nuggets.
I have to agree. I have my concerns about everybody, including the Nuggets. They got to stay healthy themselves. But you got Boston, you're really relying on Porzingis to play a lot of minutes and be healthy in the playoffs. And everybody's relying on their top guys too. But that has been a formula that has not worked great in the past. So he's kind of a bigger injury risk than average. And the Suns are old, and the Bucks are old, and the Timberwolves, I still don't really trust Gobert to not get sort of taken out of the paint in the playoffs, and Karl Anthony Towns, and yada, yada, yada. But, all those teams are pretty competitive. It just kind of comes down to whoever gets the breaks.
Yeah, I'll say Celtics take home the in-season hardware, and then Nuggets take home the postseason. So that's my.
Which would you say is more important?
Well, considering this is the first in-season.
Yeah, this is more important than the finals.
This is more historical.
Of course.
I'd rather be the first in-season tournament winner than the 100th.
Dude, who cares, man?
Dude, every other team in the league has done that before, pretty much. So the Suns have some big games coming up.
So true. Theo, what is that behind you on your whiteboard? What player are you drawing up?
I was just messing around, and I drew Duo.
Oh, okay. You love Duo,
erased.
I feel like.
Everyone should. I saw Nate Tice tweet that it's the most efficient run blocking. It's the most efficient run blocking scheme there is right now. Duo,
Yeah.
best play
Why
in the
is
book.
that?
Well, it's just easy to run, I think. Just build some big double teams, and
Yeah.
it's not hard.
Oh, yeah.
With gap scheme, you've got a pulling guy, and no one can get knocked back. Otherwise, he's going to get caught up. And well, I guess Duo is kind of gap scheme. It's just without the puller. But that puller adds a moving part that's just a little bit more difficult to access than Duo. And I think Duo, you add that element to power, and you're getting kind of right up the gut versus these lighter boxes. It's easy, it's quick, it's good, it's easy to read. I think for the running back,
It's
good
easy,
stuff.
and it's free.
But I don't know. I was just messing around.
You have to wonder why the Panthers didn't just run that all the time.
They tried, and they
Make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday. And get ready for some football and some fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
That's a good segue into the Frank Reich firing. Matt,
that's what
I
I was
asked this
going
on the
for.
live. How many total games of the Frank Reich era did you see total as a
said
Panthers
7.
fan? We
I
hardly
didn't
knew
watch all of them. I didn't watch every single Panthers game. Sorry, I'm in the
Fake
Panthers
fan.
gear today, but dude, I mean, it's just unwatchably bad team.
Yeah.
Horrific from top to bottom. I don't really think that Frank Reich is like at fault for the Panthers. I think if you wanted to blame any one person outside of like Tepper, it's Scott Fitter, who's just been a horrific. The draft has been horrific for the Panthers. They have to have the worst record drafting over the last 5 years of any team. I mean, their real like true strong hits are like Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, who does not play, unfortunately.
Never plays.
I was about to say, do you even count that as a hit?
He's good, but yeah.
He's good, but...
Christian McCaffrey, that was 2017, 2018? That's
I think
too
it was
long
2018.
ago.
Since the turn of the century, it hasn't been much.
It's been like nobody, man. It's been like nothing. It's insane. And you know, we can sit here and judge each one of their moves. And be like, was that they thinking about it the right way? Was trading up for the number one overall pick the right move? I just think it's all come down to, you know, it's like, I think everything would be fine, even if sometimes their process was a little bad, if they could just draft better. And you just have to do that. I mean, I think that's the story of pretty much every team building in every league. You either draft good or you don't, and you're bad. And the Panthers have it, and they're bad. That being said, the Panthers could not have been worse than they are this year. It's honestly kind of a miracle they won a game.
Against the Texans, no less.
Against the Texans, no less. So I also don't think that Frank Reich has done a particularly good job, because a similar roster to this one was at least competent under Wilkes. It wasn't the exact same thing. You didn't have a rookie quarterback in there. You had Darnold, who I think is probably one of the more like plus backup guys in the NFL right now. And you had DJ Moore, so that gave you a little bit more firepower, and the offensive line was playing a little better and a little bit healthier. But what position group is not drastically underperformed? You know, it was supposed to be the superstar coaching staff, and the idea is we were going to get the most out of these guys, and we were getting the very least. I think some of that blame has to fall on the guy at the top. I think Frank Reich, I'm going to make a guess, probably did not want to continue to be here to some extent, man. I mean, Jesus Christ. So I'm not mad at the firing, and I'm not mad at Frank Reich, I guess is my opinion at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that assertion. I asked you last week about how you felt about the potential to get him fired, and you said sure, which I think is a fine thing, because I watched their film and it's clear that they don't have any talented receivers, really. They've got Mingo, who is like a glorified fullback, Thielen, Chark. These guys are not creating any separation. And when that is the case, it's hard to have a successful passing attack. And there has been no cohesive vision over the past couple of years because so many guys have gotten hired and fired. It's just kind of this mess of different ideas. And there's been 2 different play caller changes this year, with Reich giving it and then taking it back. And I watched the team and I'm like, what do you guys work on in practice? Because no one has gotten better at anything. They've all gotten worse. There's a bunch of blown assignments up front. Like, they're not even getting in front of the guy. They're just letting him go right by. So clearly whatever you do have in the playbook, guys don't know super well, which speaks to the coaching staff. Bryce Young's footwork is a complete and total mess, even when the pocket is clean. So it's like, okay, what are you guys working on in the quarterback room or the line room when you don't know the plays? And they drafted Mingo, who is used as this inline, like, tight end type, fullback type at Ole Miss. And then they don't use him in any creative ways. They just kind of use him as another wide receiver, which he's not good at. He's not a good route runner. He's not very fast. He can't take the top off. Like, he doesn't have great ball skills. You saw him leap out of bounds and inverse toe tap the sideline the other week.
Yeah.
So Frank Reich isn't doing anything positive, but at the same time, it's impossible to be a good play caller when the players are bad, which they currently are. So it's everyone's fault.
It's a great point. There is no cohesive thought to this team. It's like Tepper has his opinions, and Fitterer has his opinions, and Reich has his opinions. And I'll say this, maybe it's unfair. Reich didn't even necessarily bring in his guys. He brought in the guys who he thought was best. So I feel like the right way to build things out is to have a guy who is like the decision maker, whether that be the coach or the GM. And then the GM gets a guy who he knows is like in the same line of thinking as him. And the coach gets guys who are in the same line of thinking as he is. And the Panthers haven't done that. They've gone like a million different directions, and that's what the team looks like.
They built a new playbook from scratch this offseason. Like, it wasn't brought over from anyone. It was all new. And I just don't think anyone was familiar with it, and no one knew what they wanted to be. And just too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't think that Tepper was solely responsible for the drafting of Bryce Young. But it sounds like his opinion, like he's a pretty involved owner. So, you do have to take his opinion into account. You do worry about the fear of being axed pretty quickly because he's done it 3 times now in the middle of the season. Fitterer has been there through multiple coaching staffs. And then there's, a new coach in there this year with guys that are not from his tree at all around him. So just a total mess. I think Bryce Young, it's kind of a mulligan rookie year for him, in the same way that I think you should consider Josh Allen's rookie year an impossible situation when his wide receiver one was like, oh God, who was it that year?
It
Sean
was probably
Brown.
Cole Beasley, maybe.
Dude, it was no, it was Treadwell, wasn't it? Didn't Treadwell have like?
No, I'm talking about that's Lawrence.
That's
Trevor. I'm sorry, I misheard you.
Lawrence was a similar situation. It was the 2018 Bills. Who was their wide receiver 1?
I think it must have been Beasley.
I think it was
Zay Jones, and then it was Robert Foster, and then it was Kelvin Benjamin, and then it was Jason Kroom, and then it was LaShawn McCoy. Impossible situation to work with. And I hear a lot of like, well, the wide receivers are bad and the line is bad, and Bryce isn't athletic enough to bail you out. And I agree, like Bryce isn't his ceiling isn't as high as Josh Allen's. However, not even Josh Allen as a rookie could bail. Like, Bryce Young is not God. Okay, you could put prime Cam Newton, who is as big and as strong as anybody in history, with those wide receivers and those offensive linemen, and he would not be efficient in that situation. Like, it doesn't matter how big and strong you are if the situation is that big of a mess. Like, Lawrence sucked his rookie year when there were no redeeming qualities on the team, and he's the golden boy, like Prince Charming, like 6'6" giant arm, he's got everything. And so does Josh Allen. So it's like, if those guys couldn't do that, like, Young certainly isn't going to do it. And I just don't think that I put really any of the blame at the feet of Young. I actually thought in the Titans game he made a couple really money throws that were, of course, tightly contested because there's never any separation. So I think I want to complete. I want to see at least one good wide receiver, one good lineman on the team.
Agree.
Before
I agree. I'd like to see even more than one if possible.
If possible. I fear without a first round draft pick, it's going to be a little bit difficult.
It is, but it's possible. Like, there are going to be ways. T. Higgins will be a free agent. Mike Evans is a free agent. Like, sign somebody, dude. Like, something needs to, I get that it's like no more rebuilding year. Like, or no more tanking year. I mean, this wasn't supposed to be a tanking year, but it's like you got to add a lot of talent fast, even if you overpay.
And that's probably what I think they're going to do. They're going to say, well, you got to get some people around Bryce. We don't care about like, oh, well, is this the best value possible? Like, they're not going to, hopefully that's what they do, and just give Bryce a chance. Because at this point, and your investment was so big to get him. I mean, any first round quarterback, your investment's big to get him, you might as well. So, yeah.
And as far as their next coach, like someone they could hire, like, I don't even care who it is, but you got to stick with him. You fired your last 3 coaches in the middle of the year, Rivera, Rule, and Reich. Like, no matter if it looks like a disaster next year, like, I don't care how bad it gets, you can't fire the next guy. Okay. You have to let him go for more than one season and start to build some actual continuity and like an actual vision. Like, let it take place. And if in 2 years or 3 years, it's looking like it's not the right answer and Bryce hasn't improved and nothing has gotten better, then you could fire people and start again, I guess. But I don't want any more rash decisions. Like it's happened too many times and it's not helping the team. And I feel like every time you do it, it just makes the situation that much harder for the next guy because the culture is bad and the vision, there's nothing to work with.
I agree.
There is
I
nothing
agree.
to work with.
I don't think that firing Reich because like nobody else is going to want to work there is correct.
I don't think so either, but I think that you need a little bit more patience in the future.
Yeah. Well, I think what it comes down to is you need to get somebody who is worth being patient for. That's the real problem. People make it like, oh, like firing a coach in 1 year is the symptom. It's not the problem. The problem is that you're hiring coaches who are not like, you're hiring either coaches into a bad situation or you're hiring coaches who are not good. And that's why you fire somebody after 1 year. And that's the problem.
Yeah, you can look at this Panthers team and it's not well coached. So I don't really have a problem with them firing Reich. It's just when so many of them stack up in a row, it's like, eventually you got to pick a guy and stick with it, even if it's not the next Sean McVay. And I think that you've got one more shot. And if you can't hire a good coach and however many tries in this short amount of time, you should consider not being an owner anymore because
well, there will be coaches available.
Yeah,
very true. It's not a bad year.
It's Ben Johnson time. The
Ben
real
Johnson,
question is,
Mike
will
McDonald.
Ben Johnson want?
I'm pounding the table for Georgia's OC, Bobo.
Yeah.
I like Georgia's offense. I think that a lot of the buttons and a lot of the play calls and things that people are always clamoring for is contained within the Georgia offense. And I always have enjoyed watching them, like just their offense go with. I think that could be a good fit, but that's another guy I would like to highlight. But
if we want to move on to talking about good football instead of bad football, talk about the MVP conversation. The Philadelphia Eagles are currently the best team in the NFL with the best record in the NFL. And Jalen Hurts is, with his stone cold demeanor recently and his pristine podium presence, MVP favorite. The real question is, would you give it to him? We were talking about this earlier in the year, and I think we were under the consensus that we wouldn't, because the offense should be the best in the league with the talent that it has. At the time, it wasn't. Currently, it's still not. But, I mean, the past couple of weeks, he has been on a tear, and in the last game, 5 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime. Is he
mid-performance? That was not a good performance by Jalen Hurts in the last game. I'm not joking. I know he started off like really bad. It was like 2 for 9 or something with a pick. He was not good. He was not that good in the Bills game. I'm sorry, everybody. Clip this. Get everybody mad. 5 touchdowns. I don't care. That was it. Honestly, watching back the film with that game made me very anti Jalen Hurts MVP because he's played well. That was not, he's had better performances than that. He's a franchise quarterback. He's top 10 and all that. But in that game, especially at the beginning, his pocket presence was atrocious. I mean, it was terrible. There was no timing. There was no rhythm. There were guys open. His feet were all over the place. He was leaving the pocket. And the entire game, it was one read and then scramble. And there were 2 turnovers that he had because of bad decisions with option plays. There was one where he couldn't quite tell if he wanted to give it to Swift or not on the handoff when Poyer blitzed and he ends up fumbling it. And then there was one where he pulled it and threw on an RPO and it got tipped and picked, but the target on the RPO was absolutely blanketed and it wouldn't have been a good throw anyway. And it was a bad decision. I thought Josh pretty thoroughly outplayed Hurts in that game. And overall for MVP, I feel like there are quarterbacks that have been better than Hurts, namely Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And I think Mahomes, the Chiefs have more passing yards than the Eagles do, passing touchdowns than the Eagles do. They're higher in passing DVOA. They're higher in total passing EPA, although I think the Eagles have a slight edge in passing EPA per drop back. But the Chiefs pass more, so more is on the quarterback there. They take less sacks. There's more production through the air, and the supporting cast is worse. Whereas Mahomes' numbers are, I think, better than Hurts' slightly. Like my vote would still be probably for Mahomes. They've won a lot of games, and I think like it's just common sense.
Yeah,
like, Mahomes is.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that offense. Even if you put in somebody who is a good quarterback, but it's not Mahomes, it could be a disaster really quickly. Their receivers are, I mean, the worst of probably any team that is like top 10 and passing offense. And really, they're the worst of almost any team in the league, straight up. Yeah. It's like we talk about, like maybe a CJ Stroud doesn't have the craziest help, but Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Schultz, like I'll take that, man, all day. So it's a little bit boring because it's not his best statistical year. So you're like, really, this is a Mahomes MVP year? But I think I have to agree. Where would that offense be without him? Whereas with the Eagles, things are just better around Jalen Hurts by a lot.
Yeah.
I think Stroud, I think Dak, I think Lamar and Mahomes, I would probably all vote for before Hurts and Tua and Purdy.
Yeah.
And then there's the
Dak season is getting swept under the radar. It needs to be talked about more.
I think Dak is a more worthy candidate than Hurts. I still think Mahomes is doing the most. Like Dak has a good line in front of him and CD but outside of CD, like Cooks and especially Gallup have not necessarily had banner years. Pollard hasn't quite been the difference maker that you'd expect him to be going into the year. Like a lot of it has been on just like Dak and CD Cook. So I'm not mad at a Dak take at all. I think that he might be second on my ballot. And then I think Lamar also deserves a shout, and Stroud. Yes. Those guys all. And I think Allen, letter of the law, is also an MVP candidate.
No one is winning MVP if they're not at least winning their division. Like I know it's usually
I know you're not winning it at 6-6, so I get it.
There's no shot. Allen's no shot. Dak's unless they knock off the Eagles, probably no shot.
I think Garrett. I think if you're talking non-quarterbacks, I think with how bad the Browns' offense has been and how good Myles Garrett has been, I think that he deserves a legitimate shout. I'd probably put him on a top 5 ballot. I wouldn't want to have all 5 quarterbacks. I think that's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other discussion is, because you give it to a non-quarterback by rule, they aren't the most it's not really true, but it's nice to think that a non-quarterback could win it if they have a special enough season. And Tyreek Hill right now is doing that. Tyreek. I mean, in a weak quarterback year, nobody is having like a totally dominant season, albeit maybe partially because some of the help around some of the top guys is not great. If Tyreek goes on this amazing offense and he sets the record for most receiving yards in a year, and he's, one of the big guys creating a bunch of explosives, I think he absolutely should have a case for it, or should at least get, sort of the like, hey, you're top 3, you're top 5 and voting nod like they do for Heisman candidates who aren't quarterbacks. They say, hey, you can come to New York, buddy. You're not going to win it because you don't play my favorite position, but you can come to New York if you'd like. I think they should.
He deserves to be on ballots.
Tyreek, he's on pace for 2,040 yards right now.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. So I think Yeah, I think I'd give him a nod, but I'd probably still lean Mahomes right now. Although it's a lot of football to be played, and I think it could go any way still. There's like 4 or 5 different guys who are very solidly in the race.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, what our MVP ballots would be, and I said it'll be the quarterback who has the strongest second half of the season, and it's only been like 3 or 4 weeks since then. So
yeah,
I still agree. Whoever plays the best the rest of the way. And I don't think it's Hurts. Hurts is very good, but I just don't think that he is quite as dominant in the pocket as some of the other guys. He doesn't have the numbers some of the other guys do. I think against the Bills, it was like when they had him drop back and passing, it was really bad. And then they kind of started to run the ball a little bit more, make it a bit more RPO and option heavy, like one read or run it. And then he started to have success. But
yeah.
I think there are quarterbacks who do a bit more than that and have more on their shoulders than Jalen Hurts does and are outperforming him. So he would not be number one on my ballot, even though he's the best quarterback for the best team.
Here's a question for you. I know we talk about like Garrett, and he's the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year right now, and he'd probably be the leading defensive MVP favorite. What about DaRon Bland breaking the record for pick sixes?
For MVP?
Not MVP, but like at least Defensive Player of the Year. Do you think he can get some consideration for that? I don't think he would have
I
to
don't know.
Like,
I mean, he's having an absolutely bonkers season. 5 pick sixes is totally wild, but is he the best defensive player in football? I would reckon that he's not the best defensive player on his own team.
Probably not.
I
but
wouldn't
he's
vote
the
for
only
him.
defensive. But how many
He is
defensive
making
players?
history, though.
How many defensive players can say they have literally 30 points?
Not many, but
Garrett's forced a lot of swings and points, but
Bland is having a nuts season. Maybe you could consider him, but I just think that you should give it to whoever the best defensive player that year was. And I don't think DaRon Bland is better than Myles Garrett, point blank.
No, I don't think
and even though he's
you will never hear me argue.
I think it's still Garrett in terms of who the best defensive player is. That would still meet my vote. Although that arm injury, we'll see. There's a lot of good candidates.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on the live, or because someone asked, what the update was on that. Supposedly, Garrett
sounds like he'll be playing injured the rest of the year.
That's what it does sound like, but the diagnosis, like immediately after, from Stefanski at least, was that there's no structural damage. So it shouldn't be anything too serious. And Garrett does say that, kind of no matter what, he expects to play the rest of the year. But
they'll need him. I mean,
yeah, no, Theo, you tweeted about that. Without Garrett and Denzel, this defense completely falls apart.
Yeah, they allowed 20-something points to the Broncos directly because I think of the absence of, just Ward. Not even Garrett played in that game and he got hurt, but he played in that game. Number 0, Newsome the second, as a direct replacement for Ward, like not lockdown. He probably gave up about 100 yards in that game, and it's like, if they can't play man coverage because they've got a guy out there that you can routinely pick on, and Garrett's not out there, like their defense is not going to be historically great. And if their defense isn't historically great, DTR isn't winning you many games. So
hold on,
if they're both banged up,
don't talk about my quarterback like that.
If they're both banged up, the Browns could have a really serious downslide these next couple of games.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen an update on Denzel Ward.
I haven't either. I've been looking. He didn't practice today with his shoulder injury, and we'll see.
Yeah, they will absolutely need Denzel. I could not believe how badly Greg Newsome was getting shredded on the back end.
He was not good.
He had no hope against. It's Courtland Sutton, and Courtland Sutton's been having a terrific year. But there were plays where he wasn't even like in proximity.
No, he had a really bad game.
Really bad. But I don't know. He hasn't been that bad before. So maybe it was just an off day and against a great receiver. So we'll see going forward. But yeah, Garrett's, I think, the main guy you have to worry about. So main note, Hurts, not the MVP.
Steph Curry makes you believe that you can do anything. I mean, look at me. He has me believing that I can shoot threes when I play pickup basketball. And the Curry 11s are specifically designed with ultimate bounce, grip, and stability to allow everyone to do their thing. New generations of ball players are coming up and showing the basketball world that the old rules do not apply. The future is exciting, fast, positive, and hungry. This NBA season, rock your favorite player and rep his shoes on and off the court. The Curry 11s are perfect for both the committed and casual ballers. The UA Warp Tech makes the shoe feel like it was designed for your feet, locked in no matter what you do on the court. Stop in your tracks with dual density UA Flow cushioning and traction, an emergency brake that you don't even notice. Steph's 11th signature shoe steps into the second decade of his sneaker career, pulling colorway inspiration from the wonders of a positive and modernized future on and off the court. Take these kicks with you when you leave the scrimmage and rep UA wherever you go. Do your thing. Change the game. The Curry 11 Future Curry is available now at currybrand.com.
But we have some games that we want to talk about, moving into, this upcoming weekend. There's a few really big games that we're looking at for, playoff seeding, namely the 49ers and Eagles. These are the top two teams in the NFC, maybe just the top two teams in the NFL point blank. This game probably won't necessarily determine who will be the one seed, but it gives a lot of foresight to probably what the NFC Championship game could look like. Theo, you had, I think, some picks for this game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, there's a couple big games in this slate, and we're gonna go through them and pick our winners and what the games will look like. And this segment of the show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go
Thank you for that,
Prize
buddy.
Picks, show them some love. But as far as this game goes, I think the 49ers are gonna win. This is
because this isn't the playoff game. They'll win this one and they'll lose in the NFC Championship. This is how we know it. Like,
I think the Eagles are showing. I think with Hurts and his overall pocket, I don't know. Let me get my thoughts together here for a second. I think that the 49ers are the most stacked team in the league. I think that they have the best defense. I think that they have not the best defense. I think they have a better defense than Philly and the best offense in the league right now in terms of, high-end talent.
Every stat will back you up there. They're number one in EPA, DVO, like everything, I'm pretty sure. Success rate. So
I feel like this has not been a banner year for Darius Slay on the back end.
No.
There are occasionally, like, once you get beyond the top three corners from the Eagles, like, it gets undrafted free agents really fast. There can be some plays where, like, Josh Jobe is going to be out there, or you're going to have Debo on Maddox or something along those lines. I don't think their linebackers are great in coverage, Cunningham and Morrow. And I think about them trying to guard Debo or Kittle or something like that on the back end. And I just don't know if their offense is humming like San Francisco's is. And they're playing more middle of the field closed, like aggressive defense this year under Sean Desai than they were under Jonathan Gannon last year. And I like that change in philosophy. But their talent just isn't as good as it was last year, even though, Jalen Carter's been a revelation and Jordan Davis, I think, has taken a bit of a step. It's certainly like a great front line, and Bradbury and Slay are capable of huge game-changing plays. Like, they're super instinctive and have made some absolutely bonkers plays at the cornerback position this year. Slay made what he called the greatest play of his career this year, and Bradbury had a pick on Josh Allen that was beautiful last week. But just from top to bottom, I think the 49ers are coming into it playing better football.
Yeah, I think I agree. I have some concerns about a 49ers rush defense that really has not taken this massive step. I mean, that was sort of their problem last year, is that the Eagles went right at them. They went right at Kinlaw. And this year, I feel like their rush defense hasn't like massively improved in any way. And I think the Eagles offense is going to get theirs. Absolutely. But I agree. The 49ers offense right now is as good as it's ever been. They've got so many playmakers. They're so tough to cover because they do so many different things. And with all the motion and all that, if you're not really locked in coverage, you're going to get torched. And we haven't really seen what this 49ers offense, we didn't see it in the playoffs, I should say, could do against this Eagles team because, they were running out, me at quarterback, right? So I think I also lean for the 49ers. It's a close one. I could see the Eagles controlling the time of possession and just running on the ground and saying, come and stop us. But
yeah, and I could see them getting pressure. I think that if this is a game where they want to go more bare front outside of the Trent Williams matchup, I think would have the advantage at every single other position along the defensive line. So if they could, I mean, you saw what happened in the first game. Like, they knocked Purdy out of the game because of their pass rush. Hassan Reddick was just that dude, and the tight end had no chance to block him off play action. And maybe something like that happens again where they just can light Purdy up. And I'm not saying he'll get hurt, but force a bad decision. Purdy, there was a 3-week stretch where they lost every game. Like, he's not unbeatable. So, but I just think the 49ers are going to make a statement. I think as long as they're healthy, they're the best and they're healthy. So
yeah, they are. The last time these two
underdog
teams played,
Eagles.
don't make the Eagles an underdog, man. You know how that ends. The last time these two teams played, the Eagles held the ball for 38 minutes, 37 and a half minutes.
I think they're going to try to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I know the personnel up front is different, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way that they go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see them, though. The 49ers, they've got such good pass protection that they may just try to exploit those boundary corners who have played some good games. Like, they're coming off a great game versus Lockett and DK and them last week, like Ward and Ambry Thomas. They balled out last week. But you may want to take your chances, like if you think you can pass protect, like trying to get those explosives. And I feel like that's kind of what happened last game too, was they were able to run it at Kinlaw, but also Hurts didn't play a great game against the 49ers last year. And I feel like it was because he was kind of big game hunting some of those big plays, and his downfield accuracy just wasn't quite where it needed to be.
Wasn't Jalen also injured in this game?
Yeah, I remember during the playoffs last year, he had his was it his leg or his shoulder?
I thought I don't remember, but I could have.
I remember him being banged up and like he wasn't quite as physical a runner as he had been, or they didn't do it quite as often, and there was speculation.
I think it was his shoulder because it
was his shoulder. You're right.
He didn't play like the last two
it's
regular
his leg
season
now.
games. Okay,
he's got a big leg contusion, I guess.
You know, the argument for Jalen Hurts being the MVP should just be that QB sneak that they do. The fact that no one else can run that play but him.
It's a pretty neat trick.
Yeah, it's real cool. I don't think anybody can deny that.
But I feel like Kelsey and Landon Dickerson and those guys are also a big reason. Landon Dickerson is a big
Jordan. Go for it.
It's
Matt.
a classic, like, who is actually deserving of credit for the tush push being so good? And it's so good because all of them are so good. It's not like it's just Kelsey or just Jalen. It's all of them, man. It's a cheat code, dude.
Yeah, they just got the right guys there.
Yeah, I think Hurts needs to be better as a drop back passer in this game against the 49ers. There will be opportunities on goes down the field. Obviously, that's what you want to hit with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Like, that's what they're so good at. And that's what you got to do against these Niners, I think, as opposed to running it at their defensive line. But they do rotate guys in and out a lot. And obviously, even when they're not doing
I think
that,
the Eagles can run it pretty much anybody. I
think they can run it pretty much anybody, but
good.
Yes,
I think
they can run.
I think the point is if you want to create explosives, you're better off going against. Like, I know Ward had a pretty solid stretch and he had a great game against Dallas, but like generally he has not been this like huge plus addition in their secondary. And opposite of him, I think you can take advantage too.
I think it's tough if we're projecting that the offense for the 49ers has the edge to win it on the ground. I think that the 49ers are going to put up points, and obviously they need to run the football effectively, but
yeah,
they're going to need some like Hurts to play a great game. I don't think that Hurts can get away with the game he had against the Bills and have them come back and win. Because
I agree.
Ayuk ain't Gabe Davis, buddy.
Gabe Davis had 100 and a tutty. It just doesn't matter anymore.
Did he have 100 yards last game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm mostly fooling about the Gabe Davis stuff.
Ayuk wishes he was Gabe Davis, man. Let's be real.
That doesn't bode well for the Eagles secondary if Gabe Davis had 100. I do not remember him having that kind of impact, but I think
he did. Maybe I'm making that up in my head. Could be, but
he had a touchdown, I know. Maybe he did have 100 yards.
Let's look.
There's no reason not to know.
We will be figuring this out.
He had 105 yards, a touchdown on 6 catches. He had like 12 or 13 targets, I think, though. So, like,
he did have 12 targets. Well, good for Gabe Davis, I guess.
He's open.
Good for him.
So Theo, what are your big picks for this game?
So my big picks in this game is if I was a betting man,
if
I was a betting man, I think that it's going to be an AJ Brown type of game. I think that you're going to need to go band for band with the 49ers. And the only reason you're going to do that, like your trump card to play is AJ Brown. I think, with Hufanga out and a safety that I think is better at coming downhill and tackling Jair Thomas, like you're going to want to test those guys deep, I think, early and often and try to match pace because that your secondary is probably going to be struggling. I think, man, it's so tough to know with these 49ers players, like whose game it's going to be. So you may just want to do like a Purdy over as opposed to trying to guess, like, is Ayuk going to eat? Is Debo going to eat? Is Kittle going to eat? Like it's, I feel like they can't all do it. Or is McCaffrey going to eat? They can't all do it. So I feel like McCaffrey's probably the running guy that you rely on. And then instead of trying to go and guess which wide receiver it's going to be, I would just probably go with Purdy. So I think those would be my picks: AJ Brown, Purdy, McCaffrey, and then I think I would do overs. And a Swift under because I'm me.
The Swift under's gonna ruin the whole thing, man. Just because you said that, Swift is now going off.
Is somebody like tapping their foot?
That's me. I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. You could just hear it.
Sorry, listeners at home.
I'm going to intentionally, because I'm going to go in and edit the audio. I'm going to turn up the low end on this just so that you can hear it like tapping in the back of your headphones the whole time. Everyone's going to be like, what is that sound? And then Matt's
my ticks.
Theo's nervous for this 49ers Eagles game.
I'm nervous that Swift is going to have 150 yards and cut it back and get to the edge like he did versus the Bills. He's such a funny runner. he's such a cutback guy. Like there was the play at the end was sick from Swift where he kind of put it on ice, getting him in the red zone. He cut it all the way back. Like 3 guys had an opportunity to contain him and all of them lost the angle. Like it was a nice run, but he's freestyling, dude. He's the running back equivalent of like a Mahomes out of structure, like throw across his body. Like that's what he believes he is capable of, like as a running back. Like if he doesn't see a gap, he's like, I'm gonna run it around the defensive end. And sometimes he does.
Sometimes he does.
And it's cool when it happens. But I'm still not on the Swift train. I think overall, like he's just not my style. Get north and south.
I agree.
Well, one of the other games we want to talk about is Dallas, Seattle. Dallas looks like, we just talked about Dak Prescott, probably an MVP candidate if they could win the NFC East. Hey, I mean, if the 49ers beat the Eagles, Dallas wins this week, might be a conversation to be had at that point. But we got to talk about this game as it stands. Seattle has not looked up to their talent as of late. Geno has been underwhelming. The offensive line hasn't been very good. And they're on kind of a tough stretch. They have Dallas. They have, I think, the Niners in like back-to-back games because they played the Niners last week and they'll play them again next week. So it's a tough stretch for them. Do you think there's any way they get back on track this week, or do you think we'll see more of the same?
It's a tough get-right game. It's a tough get-right game. I mean, they've had one of the better pass defenses all year pretty much. And when you've got tackles that are struggling versus, the Cowboys' big, edge rushing prowess or duo or whatever you want to call it, it's just going to be a tough way to live. You're asking a guy, Geno, who's been in a slump to break out of it when he's probably going to be under, as much duress as he's been in any game. I think it's tough not to favor the Cowboys in this one.
I think the impact of Ken Walker is being out or doubtful, at least in this game, is legitimately a big one, even though he's a running back. When you've got a guy who is that dynamic with the ball in his hands and can create explosives pretty easily, just a handoff, just a dump off, that could be a big boon versus a defensive line like this. I think that there are big plays available to be made against Dallas. They like to play single high. They like to play man coverage. And when you've got the receivers that the Seahawks do, if you're aggressive down the field, I think that you can have success against Dallas, but like the line might not allow that to happen like the 49ers were able to do, or even the Cardinals were able to do. They're not a motion heavy team. They don't put those linebackers in as much, I think, pre-snap conflict that I think that they struggle with. Like I'd like to see some of that from Seattle and try to neuter Parsons as much as possible with kind of those motions and making him pat his feet and options and trying to slow down that pass rush as much as possible. But that isn't quite their game. And if they're just going to be trying to drop back and throw, I think they're going to be met with the same problems that they've had all of this year. And it's the reason that they've been so underwhelming is, their line is probably going to get caved in. And without Ken Walker as that kind of that wild card who could take a screen to the house or a dump off to the house or just give him one crease, or he can make a guy miss and take it to the house. I think when there's like no real potential of that happening.
Charbonnet is not, Charbonnet is not a bad piece.
He's not Ken Walker.
He's not Ken Walker.
But he's not Ken Walker.
Yeah, maybe he's someone who
Ken
doesn't.
Walker is also an East-West guy.
Oh, Ken Walker is totally an East-West guy. I honestly think Ken Walker has substantial, I think he has more juice than Swift is the thing, though. Like, Swift has juice, but I think Ken Walker is at a completely different level. So I like Ken Walker a little bit more than Swift. I also think Ken Walker, out of necessity, a lot of the times more than Swift is taking it outside.
That's also true. It's just with those guys, it's like, okay, if you're going to be a big East-West guy, okay, but you better hit the home runs. and
Yeah.
that better work, and I'm sure that Swift has like better numbers than Ken Walker because like slight offensive line difference.
Slight.
But I think from a talent standpoint, I just like, Ken Walker is better at getting that stuff done.
Yeah, it's ideal to have both, which is what Charbonnet and Ken Walker is. You can, depending on the situation, you can put in the guy that you like better. I think when you're underdogs and you need to get a win, like it's more important to have that juice because you need those game breakers as opposed to maybe if you were the big favorite, like you just want to stay on schedule. But in a game like this, I don't think that their running game is going to be very explosive with Charbonnet. I don't see any way it could be. And then maybe they can take advantage of the way that Dallas calls defense with all the man coverage in the single high, but I don't know if their line is going to allow them to do that.
Won't
so
have
I'll
time
pick
to do
Dallas.
that. I mean, you saw what happened to the Bears whenever they tried to dial up deep shots. They got crushed. Theo, I think you even made a TikTok about it, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty much exactly how it goes. And that's,
maybe if they can play CD really tight and make someone else beat them somehow, the defense is going to have to win the game for them.
Yep. They have the talent on defense. Boye Mafe's had a pretty good year. We've seen them pass rush with Jordan Brooks, and we've seen them have success doing that. Their secondary is real nice. They have 4 guys that can really ball out for them. We've seen Witherspoon take a pick to the house. We know Woolen has great ball skills. We know Adams can play kind of all over the field in the box. We know he has great ball skills too. Like, man, Dak's had a good year, but if there were any game for them to like really, really make a statement, if they, you're right. If they could lock up CD,
just double him at all times. Like whatever your game plan is, like you would need an absolutely fire one.
And Diggs, just like bracket.
Yeah, well, wherever he is on the field, like in the slot, it would like Jamal Adams or maybe you have stylistically you would like Witherspoon on CD because CD lines up in the slot so much and Witherspoon is so good there. Like maybe it's just like have them follow CD around type of game and see what you can do. And I don't know, but if you could do a good job on CD, I don't know if anyone else on the Cowboys is like winning any of their matchups because there are so many talented players on that secondary.
I could see this being a low scoring game. Like it feels like Dallas has a better shot to win it, but I could see this being like an 18 to 14 or something.
18 to 14, huh?
I'm trying to think about how you would even get that.
Is that 6 field goals for Dallas?
It's 9 safeties. It's going to be a hell of
no 6 field goals for Seattle. That's because.
Oh, you're picking Seattle to win.
Yeah, Seattle's going to win 6 field goals.
Big Jason Myers game.
I think I have him in fantasy too, so that'll bode well.
Yeah,
for me.
I could see the vision with a low scoring game. I mean, the Seahawks haven't really shown a lot of potential to put a ton of points on the board. So just from that side of the ball, I don't think they're putting up 30. And then it comes down to like, well, is Dak going to continue to look like an MVP candidate? And he certainly could, but Seattle's defense does have the guys to potentially make things difficult on CD and therefore difficult on the whole offense. So I could see that being the case, like a little bit more low scoring than perhaps the high end teams would indicate.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at like their past few games. They let up 31 to San Francisco, but they have more options than just CD. They let up 37 to Baltimore. That's Lamar. 29 to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, the defense. I feel bad for the defense because the offense has really been what's bad, and
it's been the problem.
It's tough to hold up on defense over and over again when you're going 3 and out or punting. Like they didn't score a touchdown against the defense. Were the only ones who scored any points for them or scored any touchdowns for them, at least in the San Francisco game. I think, although statistically the numbers aren't necessarily glowing for Seattle's defense either. I don't know. Dallas certainly seems like the safe bet, but
it does. Thursday night, it'll be a fun one.
Is it a Thursday night game?
It is the Thursday night game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So right after you're done watching this, go ahead and grab yourself a Little Caesars pizza and
see if it's 18-4 or 18-14.
18-4, dog. What? 2 safeties. 6
dog,
field goals.
You're the one who said 18, dog.
I was just throwing out a random number.
I'll say Dallas wins 27-20.
That's a boring score.
Yeah,
excuse me.
18-14 is better. I
think
18-14 clears.
21.
I fear.
I think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be 100-0. How about that?
Let me pull up Scoregami real quick.
No, don't pull up Scoregami. I don't care what score has never happened before.
We are picking a Scoregami.
One time, my freshman year, I was trying to watch the slate of games, and someone in the floor 12 lobby rattled off every single Scoregami that had never had, like every combination of numbers. And then he started going through like just scores and how many times they'd had. He did this for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like trying to watch I was ready to wring his neck. He was just saying numbers for like and ever since that happened, it's like, I hate scoring. I don't want to hear about Scoregami.
What did your gut say about this being a tie?
I know your ass was rooting for the tie in the Bills Chiefs game.
Dude, it would have been so
Eagles
funny.
game.
It would have been such a classic. That's the thing. I don't want a tie to happen and Colts Tennessee. That was a tie. All right, cool, whatever. No, I want like game of the year to be a tie. It's so great. It's so wonderful.
I cannot relate. I got such a when it was looking like it could get into tie territory, my heart sank into my chest and I began to feel horrified. I was like, someone please win. But then I know Matt, that sicko is like rubbing his hands together, knowing that I'm feeling.
How do you not think it's funny? I really don't get it. You don't think it would be funny at all? I don't care who wins. Eagles.
It's a little funny, but I'd rather that like someone to win. Like
lame.
Like it just the tie is so anticlimactic. Like I'd rather watch the walk-off touchdown than the absurdity of like, oh, we watched all that just to tie.
So hypothetically, you say a tie is anticlimactic. What if Jalen Hurts running to the end zone gets clobbered, fumbles the football, and then the Bills are running it all the way back and get knocked out of bounds at the 1, game over, tie?
Yeah. What if that happens?
That would not
then
be
you'll be
anticlimactic.
sorry. No, then you'll be sorry.
Then I would make a tweet, be like, and I would say football is the dumbest sport, and it would get 10,000 likes. So I guess I can't lose.
That was so crazy. I would tweet.
So crazy. All right. So the score we're rooting for, or the score I'm rooting for, 15-11.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to stick with 18-14. That's already.
Well, that's not a Scoregami.
I don't care. That's
18
you locked
to 11.
yourself.
How about that?
You locked yourself into 18-14, buddy. I'm sorry.
All right, man. Fair enough. Do you have any over under picks?
Has happened.
18-14 has happened.
I have
14. It's happened 5 times.
I feel like I don't know. I don't have any picks. I gave my picks for the last one.
That's fair. That's fair. Then that leaves us our last game that we want to talk about. Just a simple 1:00 slate, but Broncos versus Texans. Broncos have been
a lot on the line
hot.
in this one. A lot on the line.
a lot.
I enjoyed watching the Broncos versus the Browns. I dove into that tape this morning, and
I didn't enjoy watching that game.
The Broncos are just so balanced. I feel like they just do a little bit of everything, like under center versus gun. That's about as even as a split as you'll find in the league in terms of how often they do both. In terms of their running game, they're primarily a zone team, but they'll have guys get out and pull. And versus the Browns, like they checked into trap twice in a drive that gashed the Browns both times.
Yeah.
That was cool. Like end arounds, they run the option with Wilson. There's a lot to worry about, like quick stuff to Marvin Mims, who's great with the ball in his hands. Like it's tough to quite get a read on what they're going to do. And then Russ, he had some vintage, like that arm is still live. Like he had some money deep shots this year. He ran around and found Troutman in the corner of the end zone. So they've got that diverse running game, and especially the right side of their line with McGlinchey and Miners. Like when those two combo, like people move. So they'll kind of wrestle you down to the floor, and you've got to be prepared to play a really physical game because their backs are physical. They can pass protect like Pirine will get after it. Javonte can get after it like down the field. Like they're not a fun team to tackle. And then when Sutton is playing like this, it's a pretty formidable, like there's a lot to worry about. And they mix it up really well. So it just comes down to, I think, just don't turn the ball over against them, which is easier said than done. They've created so many turnovers after the first 5 weeks of this year. And some of these high-flying attacks like Mahomes and Allen, they haven't been able to protect the football versus the Broncos. And with Stroud, they've been one of the most explosive passing teams in the league. And like it's tough. You might have to play a more physical game than you'd like versus these Broncos if like the way it's been going these past couple of weeks. So maybe I'll pick a Broncos upset and they'll keep it rolling.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. I don't have the strongest opinions about this game. It does largely come down to how clean Stroud keeps it.
Yeah. The main thing has been the turnovers, because I feel like the Broncos still are not the best drop back and pass it type of team. Their drop back EPA since the end of, even if you discount the first month of the season when they were so bad, it's still been below average. Versus the Browns, they couldn't get it going against zone at all. Like when the Browns ran zone, there was just nothing there for Denver. It was only when they ran man that they were able to pick on Newsome and pick up yards. And I don't know if they necessarily have the passing attack. Like Russ still struggles a bit with the pocket presence and throwing over the middle as usual. It's just like some of those big plays are back and less is on his plate because of the rushing attack. So the Texans are a tier above them as a team because Stroud is outplaying Russ and their passing attack is better, and that's the number one needle mover. But I don't know. Like I said, they just wrestle you down into the mud, these Broncos. And I think that, I don't know, maybe they can punch this Texans team in the mouth a little bit, and Stroud has a turnover or two. He hasn't been quite as flawless with the ball security here recently. He's been a little bit more of a risk taker, and I think put it in harm's way a bit more these past couple of weeks.
Man, they have not let up more than 22 in the past 7 weeks. After giving up 70, that is incredibly nuts.
They locked in. They had to.
Yeah,
they did.
They couldn't have locked in any less than they did for Miami. It was only up from there. But I say there's only so bad you can be when you have Buckeyes like they do on the defensive side. But that's just
and former Gahanna Lincoln High School legend.
And former Gahanna Lincoln legend. Yeah, I agree. I guess I haven't formed my opinion on the Broncos fully yet. I agree. I still don't think Russ is like the long-term solution. He's probably, he's been good enough where they're not going to make a move at quarterback or anything, most likely. We were talking about that earlier in the year, but the limitations absolutely are still there for them. And I don't know if that's going to change going forward. They've just done a really good job working around it. And Russ has been better. I don't want to be too negative about him.
Yeah, Sutton's been excellent.
Stroud also hasn't been quite as he's been. I mean, it's tough to be less turnover prone than he was before since he had
right, and that's what I'm talking about. Stroud has been a little bit more loose with the ball recently, and I think it's fair to be nervous.
But he hasn't been that loose with the ball. I guess he did have the 3 picks versus Arizona, but those were on 2 turnover-worthy plays charted by PFF. So. I don't know. Maybe I should just pick the Texans. I do think that they're a more legit, like, scary team than the Broncos. I'm just picking an upset.
I think I'll still pick the Texans. And if they lose and the Broncos are 7-5, that'll be cool. So I won't be mad at it.
I do think the Broncos are they're playing good football right now. I don't think there's too much Mickey Mouse about their offense. I think they can really. It's a physical game, and they're super, super, super physical. So that's pretty. They went right at
Cleveland. So
the
best defense in football. Hard to. And like,
I'm going to be a tone setter. The Texans. I'll stop being a coward. Broncos are going to set the tone versus Houston. They're gonna out physical them again.
All right, here's the question for you then: will the Broncos win out? They beat Houston this week. If they beat Houston this week, they've got the Chargers, the Lions, the Patriots, Chargers, Raiders.
They're not. There's some losable games in there. Like, I'm not confident to say that they're not winning out. I'll say that.
Okay.
They might be the most physical team in every game, though. They're certainly going to out physical the Chargers. Maybe they won't out physical the Lions, but
maybe not.
Yeah.
Lions are pretty tough.
P. Ryan had a touchdown. I posted it on Twitter where he got hit by JOK in the backfield and like dragged him into the end zone. I actually had to like get up and like pound my chest. I was like, let's go. I was so hyped after watching that play. That was such a dog.
I'm watching this play live and JOK hits him in the backfield. I'm like, yes. I'm like that.
But then he scores a touchdown. I'm like,
then
no.
No. Like
it was awesome.
I did the opposite of you. I like jumped out of my seat and then I like sunk back down. It like
you just got little Boyd, unfortunately. JOK played a nice game. He had like 13 tackles. He was all over. They kept sending run blitz. Yeah.
It was like his one like negative play. He was one of the only bright spots of the entire day.
But he did get sunned on that one. It was crazy.
P. Ryan's really good. P. Ryan's a solid back.
He is solid. All 3 of their backs are solid. I feel like Javonte just does not quite have the juice that he had pre-ACL injury quite yet, but
no,
he's certainly a handful. And then Jaleel with the speed, and then P. Ryan is just a dog. I love their running back room is awesome. Like
he's the most solid back in the entire NFL, I would argue.
Mm-hmm. He is just a pass pro thumper. It's
pass pro
a good
thumper,
archetype.
And just real solid. Now he's a good back in the road. Yeah, he was for the Bengals for a long time too.
He was.
Well, we want to do.
So are we thinking this will be we can do. I was going to ask if you thought this would be a high or low scoring game, or
it's
a
tough
blowout.
To say.
Maybe a medium scoring game.
You got the most explosive. I think that it is going to be a lower scoring game. I think that the Broncos want to play ball control and run the ball. So I don't think that there's going to be a tough. The Texans are the most explosive team in the league, but with the defensive turnaround of the Broncos and the way they want to play football, I don't know if CJ is going to put up like 40 on him or anything like that. But it could be. I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback right now, so he might just roll in and
absolutely
put up a ton of points. But I'll say that, again, the Broncos out physical narrative, that probably lends itself to something that's probably a bit
so what, like 22-11 or like 20-11.
Broncos win 30 to 27 on a last second field goal. They're definitely not blowing. If they win, it's going to be on the final drive of the game. Okay. There's no way anything else happens. In there, they're not winning by double digits or two possessions or anything like that.
Fair enough. I think I can get behind that.
I can also get behind that. But yes, Matt, we should get into the Stay Hot locks. Let me pull up the scores from last week. I know Matt
picked the
only
Lions.
I know Matt only locked one team, and that was Kansas City. So I know he's doing okay. Matt, you have 11 points.
Let's go.
Theo, you locked the Dolphins, Lions, Ravens, and Patriots.
Patriots sold me.
Who could have seen that coming? You still have 6 points, Theo. And then I locked the Cowboys and Titans. I'm right there with you, Matt, with 11.
You guys are killing me. That's not good.
Yeah, you need to make a comeback, Theo. I figure I don't even know who gets to choose their pick. Matt, I'll let you
go ahead, Blaiden.
Okay. I think I'll take the first pick then. And with the first pick in the Stay Hot locks, week 13, I will take the Miami Dolphins over the Washington Commanders.
I think that's very fair. Commanders been playing bad.
Dolphins have the number of any team with a bottom 22 defense. If you're top 10, maybe you've got a prayer, but the Commanders have the worst defense.
If your secondary is mid, then
and your edge rushers are guys that I've never heard of before because you traded both of them away in the middle of the year. Yeah, they're allowing 50. I fear
this will be worse than the Broncos game. So Matt,
not a lot of great potential picks this week. I'm going to go with Chargers over the Patriots. Not the biggest Chargers believer at the moment, but I'm also not the biggest Patriots believer. I think that's one of the very few spreads I can pick. Theo, that makes it your turn 2 times in a row, and I have a question to ask you.
Am I taking the interim?
Are you taking the interim head coach? My sweet old Carolina Panthers, my poor,
Who is it?
Carolina Panthers. It's Chris Tabor, I think.
Yes. But I'm not taking him now because I know that you guys aren't going to take an interim if it's the Panthers. I guarantee that interim is taking a W, though. I will go with the Falcons over the Jets. The Jets, until they prove that they can score a single touchdown in a game on offense, I think that they're pretty safe to lock against. The Ritter against that defense, I don't know. If it's Tim Boyle again or even Simeon, I just think that you can't win games with an offense as historically as the Jets. So I'm gonna lock the Falcons, and I'm gonna lock the Panthers. I'm gonna lock the Panthers. Like the interim, the Raiders were not looking good when I locked them, and they won.
Fair enough. That makes it my turn again.
Mm-hmm.
I will enact a rarely used rule in the Stay Hot locks. I will be picking against Theo's lock. I select the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to defeat.
Let's go.
My Carolina Panthers. That would be worth double points if it hits. By the way,
yes. I might be handing you the win with this interim nonsense.
I was worried because if you hadn't picked it, then I would have had to wait and pick 2 more teams to have a shot to do that.
True. My strategy, I didn't think about the strategy there.
I wasn't thinking about it. I was going to ask you that. I didn't think about it till about 30 seconds ago, but that's what I'm doing.
A good pick, Matt.
And then
that's
I'm out.
Really
I'm
good
done.
Pick. Because, so
for
those that are unclear, if you challenge in the Stay Hot locks and you win, you get double points. But the person that you're challenging only get to regular points if they win.
So I should have thought that through.
Yeah, that's a tough pick to swallow there. I'm also only going to take one more. I'm going to take the Jaguars over the Bengals. And then I'm out.
That's fair. I've got the Falcons. I've got the Panthers. I'm also going to lock... I'm going to lock the Chiefs over the Packers again. And again, okay. I don't... If that's what sinks me, that's what sinks me.
Yeah, that's fair. Very fair.
I quite enjoyed the Lions win last week, even though it did screw the locks. So I'll add that on as well.
Adding the Lions on?
No. I'm adding the Chiefs on.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I'm not feeling good about this week, but I felt decent about the other weeks, and I always seem to lose.
So this is a good change of pace.
This is a good change of pace.
So that Matt with 11 points is locking the Chargers and the Bucks. The Bucks could be worth a double. Theo with 6 is locking the Falcons, Panthers, and Chiefs. And then I'm sitting here also with 11, tied with Matt, locking the Dolphins and the Jags. Those are the Stay Hot locks. And that wraps up another episode of Stay Hot. Been an absolute blast. Woohoo! Go enjoy some Thursday night football. Maybe get a Little Caesars pizza while you're at it. I'm sure it's hot and ready, waiting just for you. But until next time, we'll be coming back to recap Week 13. Until then, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you on the Flippity Flop.